The most feared mafia boss in all of South Korea once walked away from a woman carrying his child. He left nothing behind but a one-line letter and a silence that lasted 7 years. He thought he buried that chapter of his life. He thought she would forget. He thought his daughter would never find him. He was wrong about all of it. Because 7 years later, while standing in a private room at the Peninsula Hotel in Manhattan, surrounded by men who would kill on his command, Jin-Woo Park felt someone tap his shoulder. He turned around slowly, and when he saw who was standing behind him, the most dangerous man in Korea did something no one in that room had ever witnessed before. He froze. Not from fear, not from shock, from guilt so heavy it locked every muscle in his body. Because the person standing behind him had his eyes, his jawline, and a folded piece of paper in her small hand. She was 7 years old, and she had been looking for him her entire life. If you have ever been abandoned by someone who swore they loved you, this story is going to hit different. Stay, because what happens next will change how you see loyalty forever. 7 years earlier, Brooklyn felt like it was holding its breath. The rain was punishing, the kind that floods gutters and drowns out sirens. Tanisha Washington stood in the kitchen of her small Bed-Stuy apartment at 2 in the morning, holding a pregnancy test with trembling fingers. 2 pink lines stared back at her. She pressed her hand against her stomach and whispered the only name that mattered: Jin-Woo. They had met 11 months earlier at a coffee shop on Fulton Street. She was working the morning shift, grinding espresso beans and counting down the minutes until her break. He walked in wearing a dark coat, scanning every corner of the room the way someone does when they have been hunted before. He did not look like a regular. He looked like a man who owned rooms he never entered twice. He ordered black coffee, slid a $100 bill across the counter, told her to keep the change. When 3 men in black suits walked in behind him, his expression did not change, not even slightly. He simply looked at Tanisha, smiled, and said, "If anyone asks, you never saw me." That smile ruined her life, and she did not even know it yet. Over the next few months, Jin-Woo came back again and again, not for the coffee, for her. He would sit in the corner booth for hours, watching her move through the shop, asking questions about her life like her answers actually mattered. He wanted to know about her childhood in Crown Heights, about her mother Denise, about the scholarship she lost when her father passed. He listened like a man starving for something real. Tanisha fell hard, not for his money, not for the black Escalade parked outside with tinted windows and armed men inside. She fell for the version of Jin-Woo he showed her, the gentle one, the one who brought her peonies because she mentioned once that roses were overrated, the one who stayed up until 4 in the morning on the phone with her, just breathing, just existing in the same silence. She never asked what he did for a living. He never told her. That mutual silence became the foundation their love was built on, and foundations built on silence always crack. The night she planned to tell him about the pregnancy, she came home to an empty apartment. His clothes were gone, his phone was disconnected. The only thing left was a single envelope on her pillow. Inside was a letter with one line written in his handwriting. "I am sorry, but it is not safe anymore." No explanation, no return address, no goodbye. Just silence. The kind that stretches across years and turns love into something that aches like a bruise that never heals. Tanisha raised her daughter alone. She named her Maya because the name means strength in some cultures, and strength was the only inheritance Tanisha could afford to give. The first year was brutal. Her mother Denise told her she was a fool for trusting a man whose last name she could barely pronounce. When Tanisha asked for help, Denise said, "You made your bed with a stranger, now sleep in it." The line went dead. Tanisha did not call back. She worked 2 jobs, days at the laundromat on Atlantic Avenue, nights stacking shelves at a grocery store in Flatbush. She lived off 4 hours of sleep and cold coffee. She carried Maya in a second-hand stroller through subway stations at 6 in the morning, praying the trains would run on time so she wouldn't lose another shift. People told her she was strong. She hated that word. Strong was just what people called you when they didn't want to help. But Maya grew, and Maya was extraordinary. By age 5, she could read 2 grades above her level. By 6, her teachers were calling Tanisha in for meetings, not because Maya was struggling, but because she was drawing things that worried them. Men in dark suits, buildings with Korean lettering, a symbol that looked like 2 serpents intertwined. Tanisha recognized that symbol immediately. It was the same one tattooed on Jinwoo's left forearm. She had traced it with her fingertips 100 times in the dark. She never told Maya about her father, never showed her a photograph, never mentioned his name. So how did a 7-year-old girl draw a tattoo she had never seen on a man she had never met? A child drawing her absent father's tattoo without ever seeing it, that is not imagination. That is something deeper. And if you think this is the strangest part of this story, subscribe now, because we have not even gotten close. 3 weeks before Christmas, someone knocked on Tanisha's door at 11 at night. She was not expecting anyone. She grabbed the baseball bat she kept beside the couch and looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, hood pulled low, hands visible. He was Korean, mid-30s, with a scar running from his ear to his jawline. "Are you Tanisha Washington?" His voice was steady, like a man used to delivering bad news. "Who wants to know?" "My name is Seojin. I was Jinwoo Park's second in command, and I need to tell you 3 things that are going to change your life tonight." She should have slammed the door. She should have called the police. Instead, she let him in. Because when you spend 7 years starving for answers, you will open any door that promises them. Seojin sat at her kitchen table, declined the water she offered, and spoke without emotion. First, Jinwoo did not just leave, he faked his own death. A body was burned in Seoul, dental records were forged, a funeral was held. To the entire Korean underworld, Jinwoo Park is a dead man. Second, he did not leave because he stopped loving her. He left because a rival faction called the Bake Syndicate discovered that Tanisha existed. They put a bounty on her head, $20 million. Jinwoo calculated that the only way to remove the target was to remove himself from her life completely. If she meant nothing to him, she meant nothing to them. Third, the plan failed. The Bake Syndicate found Maya, not Tanisha. Maya. Because in the Mafia bloodline hierarchy, Jinwoo's firstborn child is considered heir to his territory, and heirs are either claimed or eliminated. Tanisha felt her legs give out. She grabbed the counter to keep from falling. "How long have they known about my daughter?" Seojin paused. "Since she was born. Her daughter has been on a Mafia hit list since the day she was born. 7 years of living in the dark while predators circled in silence. If this story is pulling you in, you are exactly where you need to be. Do not leave now." Seojin gave Tanisha a choice: disappear into witness protection and never look back, or find Jinwoo and fight for her family. She chose violence, not physical violence, strategic violence, the kind that comes from a woman who raised a child alone in Flatbush on minimum wage and never once broke down in front of her daughter. The prepaid phone Jinwoo had left behind 7 years ago, the one she kept in a shoebox under her bed like a relic, turned out to be more than a dead device. It contained encrypted contacts, GPS coordinates, and access codes to safe houses across 3 states. Jinwoo had not just left her a letter, he had left her a survival kit disguised as abandonment. One of the contacts led to Hana Cho, a Korean-American woman running a dry cleaning business in Flushing, Queens. Hana was former military intelligence, compact, sharp-eyed, and terrifyingly calm. She agreed to help the moment Tanisha showed her Maya's drawings, because one of those drawings depicted a location that did not officially exist: the Bake Syndicate's private auction house hidden inside a luxury building in Koreatown, Manhattan. A 7-year-old had drawn a building she had never visited with architectural accuracy that made a trained intelligence operative go silent for 30 seconds. Hana trained Tanisha over 72 hours, surveillance basics, counter-tracking, self-defense against men twice her size. Tanisha absorbed everything like a woman who had been preparing for this without knowing it. On the fourth night, they infiltrated the auction house disguised as catering staff for a private event. Inside, Tanisha overheard a conversation between two Baek lieutenants that rewired her entire understanding of why Jinwoo disappeared. They were not hunting Maya because she was an heir. They were hunting her because Jinwoo had hidden something inside her identity, a set of offshore account numbers worth $200 million, encoded into layers of Maya's birth certificate documentation. Jinwoo had turned his own daughter into a vault, and every syndicate family on the eastern seaboard wanted the combination. Tanisha tracked Jinwoo's trail to a shipping container yard in Red Hook. It was a Baek holding point, rusted gates, security cameras with blind spots, and the smell of diesel and salt water. She went alone. Hana told her not to. She went anyway. Because Tanisha was learning something about herself that 7 years of survival had only hinted at. She was not afraid of dangerous places. She was afraid of not knowing. Inside one of the containers, she found evidence Jinwoo had been held there. Scratch marks carved into the metal walls, Korean characters that translated to dates, recent ones. A blood-stained jacket she recognized because she had bought it for him at a vintage shop on Atlantic Avenue the winter they met. Then she found what shattered her. Photographs. Dozens of them. All of Maya, at her school in Flatbush, walking through Prospect Park, eating ice cream on the stoop of their building, holding Tanisha's hand crossing the street. They spanned years. Some were taken from a car window, some from across the street, all at distances close enough to see Maya's face, but far enough that neither of them ever noticed. Jinwoo had not disappeared. He had been watching them the entire time, protecting them from the shadows, memorizing his daughter's face through a camera lens because he believed his presence would get her killed. Tanisha sat on the cold floor of that container and pressed the photographs against her chest. She did not cry. She was past crying. She was in the space beyond tears, where the only thing left is decision. He watched his daughter grow up from the shadows for 7 years, close enough to see her smile, never close enough to hold her. If that does not wreck you, nothing will. Subscribe to Tales by Wave, because stories like this do not come around twice. As Tanisha stepped out of the container yard, a black Mercedes pulled up. The rear door opened. A woman's voice came from inside, clear and controlled. "Get in, he sent me." The woman inside was stunning. Tailored coat, perfect posture, eyes like polished stone. She introduced herself as Yuna Kang, Jinwoo's wife. The word hit Tanisha like a freight train. Wife. Yuna read her expression and spoke quickly. "It is not what you think. The marriage was arranged by the syndicate 2 years after he staged his death. A political alliance between families. I do not love him. He does not love me. But I respect him, because in a world full of men who destroy women for sport, Jinwoo Park never once raised a hand to me." Yuna laid out the full architecture of the last 7 years. After leaving Tanisha, Jinwoo re-entered the Korean underworld under a fabricated identity. He positioned himself inside the Baek Syndicate's rival faction and began dismantling operations from the inside, redirecting shipments, feeding intelligence to federal contacts, siphoning money. The $200 million encoded in Maya's birth certificate was the stolen treasury of the Baek Syndicate itself. Every dollar they had made from weapons, laundering, and trafficking. Jinwoo hid it in the one place no one would think to look, his daughter's paperwork. But 6 weeks ago, Jinwoo was captured. Baek Junho, the syndicate's leader, had him. And Junho was not just a rival, he was Jinwoo's adopted brother. They had grown up in the same crime family as children. Junho had been passed over for leadership. He believed Jinwoo stole his birthright. And now he wanted the only thing Jin-woo valued more than power: his family. Jun-ho's ultimatum was simple: deliver Maya and the account codes, or Jin-woo dies. Yuna looked at Tanisha. "I came to you because he asked me to." His last words before they cut the communication were, "Tell Tanisha I am sorry, and tell Maya her father never stopped drawing her face from memory." Tanisha stared out the window of the Mercedes as it moved through Brooklyn. She had spent 7 years building walls against this man, and in one night, every wall came down. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because she finally understood the weight of what he carried. He married another woman to survive, stole $200 million to set his family free, and got captured trying to end a war he started to protect them. This is not a love story. This is a battlefield, and the woman he left behind is about to become the most dangerous person on it. This is the moment the title delivers. Tanisha did not run. She did not hide. She set a trap. Using Seo Jun's contacts and Hana's operational planning, she sent word through syndicate back channels that she was willing to negotiate the account codes in exchange for Jin-woo's release. The meeting point? The Brooklyn Pier, the same pier where she used to stand in the rain wondering if he was alive. Baek Jun-ho took the bait. He arrived in a convoy of 3 black Escalades, flanked by 12 men in dark suits. He brought Jin-woo, gaunt, bruised, wrists bound, but alive. Jin-woo's eyes found Tanisha across the pier, and something cracked behind his expression. 7 years of manufactured coldness shattered in a single look. "Tanisha, leave, now, please." His voice was raw. She did not move. Jun-ho smiled. He was tall, sharp-featured, wearing a cashmere overcoat that probably cost more than Tanisha's annual rent. He looked at her the way powerful men look at things they consider beneath them. "So, this is the woman. I expected more." Tanisha did not respond to him. She kept her eyes on Jin-woo, because what happened next was not part of Jun-ho's plan. From behind one of the pier's concrete pillars, a small figure stepped into the light. 7 years old, braids pulled back, wearing a winter coat 2 sizes too big. Maya. She walked toward the circle of armed men like she belonged there. No fear, no hesitation. She stopped directly behind Jin-woo. He heard the footsteps. Small footsteps. Impossible footsteps. He turned around and froze. His daughter stood there, holding a folded piece of paper. She looked up at him with his own eyes staring back. His jawline, her mother's fire. She unfolded the paper. It was a crayon drawing. A man standing in the rain with a snake on his arm, crying. Underneath, in a child's handwriting, "I drew you so you would not be alone." Jin-woo Park, the man who commanded armies, who had burned alliances and walked through betrayals without flinching, dropped to his knees on the wet concrete, not from weakness, from the weight of 7 years of guilt collapsing onto his chest. Even Jun-ho's men paused, fingers hovered over triggers, but did not squeeze. The moment was too human, too raw. Violence felt obscene. A little girl walked up to the most feared man in Korea, handed him a crayon drawing, and brought him to his knees. That is not fiction. That is what children do. They love without conditions, without logic, without keeping score. If you are watching this and you have someone you haven't called in too long, call them and subscribe, because the war is not over yet. Jun-ho broke the silence. "Touching. Now give me the codes or I take your heir permanently." He pulled a gun and aimed it at Maya. Jin-woo surged upward, but Tanisha was faster. She stepped between the barrel and her daughter without a second of hesitation. Her body became a wall. Her voice became something Jun-ho had never heard from someone standing in front of his weapon. Calm. "You want the codes? I have them. Not him. Me. I decoded them myself 72 hours ago. So if you want $200 million, you negotiate with me." The peer went silent. Junho blinked. Jinwoo stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Tanisha laid out her hand. Over the past 3 days, working with Hana and a forensic accountant Sejun connected her to, she had not just found the codes, she had moved the money. All $200 million was now split across 14 shell accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Singapore. Each account had a dead man switch, a timed protocol. If anything happened to Tanisha, Maya, or Jinwoo, the funds would auto-transfer to the FBI, Interpol, and 3 major news outlets, along with a complete evidence file on every back syndicate operation. Names, routes, buyers, everything. Tanisha was not negotiating from desperation. She was negotiating from checkmate. Her terms were precise. Jinwoo released immediately. The bounty on Maya erased and verified through syndicate channels. The back syndicate cuts all contact permanently. In exchange, Junho gets $80 million, less than half. The rest funds a trust for Maya and a community education foundation in Brooklyn. Junho laughed. "You think you can dictate terms to me, a woman from Flatbush?" Tanisha tilted her head. "A woman from Flatbush who just moved $200 million out of your reach in 72 hours, while raising a 7-year-old, alone. So yes, I am dictating terms, and your window to accept them closes in 60 seconds. Yuna, positioned inside Junho's convoy as an inside operative, confirmed the dead man switch through a quiet signal to his senior advisor. The message was clear. Kill them, lose everything. Junho accepted. His eyes carried a promise, but Tanisha had learned something that night that no amount of money or muscle could teach. The most dangerous person in any room is not the one holding the gun. It is the one who is not afraid to lose everything, because she already lost it all once before and survived. She outmaneuvered an entire criminal empire with a dead man switch and 60 seconds of nerve. No weapon, no army. Just preparation meeting courage. If you are not subscribed to this channel, ask yourself why, because stories this intense only happen here. The convoy pulled away. Tanisha collapsed against Jinwoo. The adrenaline drained like water through a crack. She was shaking. He held her, the first time in 7 years. Maya wrapped her arms around both of them. For one breath, it felt like the storm was over. Then Jinwoo whispered something that ripped the moment apart. The reason Junho found Maya was not intelligence, not surveillance. Someone in your life told him. Someone close to you. Someone who has been reporting on Maya since she was born. Tanisha pulled back. Who? He swallowed. Your mother, Denise. The silence that followed was worse than any gunshot on that pier. Denise Washington, the woman who raised Tanisha, who disowned her for getting pregnant, who refused to help when her daughter was drowning, had been contacted by back operatives shortly after Maya was born. They offered her money. Not a fortune, $1,500 a month, in exchange for updates on Maya's location, her school, her routine. Denise rationalized it. She told herself she was just confirming the child existed. She did not understand what the information would be used for. She was angry at Tanisha, angry at herself, angry at a lifetime of poverty that made her feel invisible. The money felt like the first time anyone valued her at all, even if it was for the wrong reasons. When Tanisha confronted her, the scene was devastating. They stood in Denise's cramped living room in Crown Heights, the television playing gospel music in the background like a cruel soundtrack. Denise broke. She sobbed, she begged. Tanisha did not raise her voice. She went quiet. That terrifying, absolute quiet that only comes from a woman whose last thread of trust just snapped. You sold your granddaughter to the people who wanted to kill her, and you did it because you were angry at me. Denise had no answer, because there was no answer. Some betrayals are too precise to explain away. Maya stood in the hallway and heard fragments of the conversation. She didn't understand everything, but children feel rupture the way animals feel earthquakes before the ground actually splits. She walked to her grandmother, took her hand, and said, "Grandma, did you do something bad?" Denise could not speak. She just held Maya and wept into her braids. Tanisha told her mother to leave and never contact them again. As Denise reached the door, she stopped. "The payments stopped 3 months ago. They said they did not need me anymore." Tanisha's stomach dropped. If the syndicate stopped paying, it meant they already had what they needed. She called Hana. No answer. Called Sejun. No answer. Called Yuna. And Yuna picked up with 3 words. "Junho broke the deal. He is coming back. You have until midnight." Her own mother sold her daughter's location for $1,500 a month. And now the deal she brokered is shattered with hours to spare. If you think you know how this ends, you do not. Stay right here. Tanisha activated the dead man switch. Not as a threat this time. For real. The complete evidence file on the Bake Syndicate dropped simultaneously to the FBI's Organized Crime Division, Interpol's Financial Crimes Unit, and 3 major investigative newsrooms. Every transaction, every name, every route, every body. Within hours, raids began. New York, Los Angeles, Seoul, Miami. Federal agents moved through Bake properties like a flood through paper walls. Accounts frozen, assets seized, lieutenants arrested in their Hamptons vacation homes and their penthouses on Billionaires Row. But Junho was not going quietly. He sent a kill team to Tanisha's building in Flatbush. Not a negotiation, an execution. Jinwoo, Sejun, and Hana formed a defensive line in the narrow hallway of the apartment building. The confrontation was not cinematic. It was claustrophobic and terrifying. Neighbors pressed ears against doors. Children were moved to bathtubs. Someone on the 3rd floor called 911 and whispered, "There are men with guns in the hallway and a little girl screaming." When Junho arrived personally, because men like him need to see their enemies fall, Jinwoo met him in the stairwell. Not with a weapon, with words. "You were not passed over because I stole your position. You were passed over because you enjoyed hurting people. I did not take your birthright. Your cruelty disqualified you." Junho lunged. There was a struggle. Sejun intervened. And then the sound of federal agents breaching the building's entrance drowned out everything. It ended not with an explosion, but with handcuffs, flashing blue lights, and the sound of Maya crying into Tanisha's shoulder. 3 months later, Tanisha sat in a new apartment, a real one, with heat that worked, and a bedroom for Maya that had actual sunlight. The trust fund she created from the recovered money covered everything. Not luxury, stability, the kind of life where you do not check your bank account before buying groceries. Maya was in school. Thriving, no longer drawing men in suits and shadows. She drew flowers now, sunflowers mostly, tall and stubborn and always reaching for light. Jinwoo visited. He did not move in. He did not get the fairy tale. He sat across from Tanisha at the kitchen table with 2 cups of black coffee between them, the same order from that shop on Fulton Street 8 years ago, and said the only honest thing he had left. "I am not asking you to forgive me. I am asking you to let me earn being in Maya's life, one day at a time." Tanisha looked at him for a long time. "You start by being here, not in the shadows, not behind a letter. Here." He nodded. Maya came running from her room and climbed into his lap before anyone could stop her. She looked up at his face and asked, "Are you staying this time?" He held her. "I am staying." Tanisha watched, not smile, not yet, but something in her shoulders released. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. And sometimes the possibility is enough to start. Months later, Denise sent a letter. Tanisha read it alone at the kitchen table after Maya fell asleep. It said, "I donated every dollar they paid me to a children's shelter in Flatbush. It does not fix anything, but I needed you to know I am trying to be different." Tanisha folded the letter and put it in a drawer. She did not respond, but she did not throw it away either, because throwing it away would mean closing a door, and Tanisha had learned that closed doors are not always your decision to make. Tanisha stood at the window of her new apartment, watching the Brooklyn skyline shift from gold to violet. The storm had passed, not because the world became safer, but because she stopped waiting for someone else to shelter her from it. 7 years ago, a man left her with a baby and a one-line letter. Today, that baby was laughing in the next room, and that man was learning, slowly, imperfectly, what it means to stay. She did not know if she would ever fully trust him again, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never again be the woman who waited by a door that someone else had closed. The next door she walked through would be one she opened herself. Freedom is not free, and it is never clean. It costs trust, comfort, and sometimes the relationships you thought would last forever. But real freedom, the kind worth bleeding for, is not the absence of danger. It's the presence of choice. Tanisha did not win because she defeated a mafia empire. She won because she refused to let fear, betrayal, or heartbreak decide her future. She chose to fight. She chose to protect. She chose to demand better from the man who left her, the mother who betrayed her, and herself. That is not a fairy tale ending. That is a real one, and real endings are always worth more. If this story reminded you that your strength is bigger than your struggle, share it with someone who needs to hear that today. Subscribe to Tales by Wave for stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. And if you're still not subscribed, drop a comment and tell me what's holding you back. I genuinely want to know. But Tanisha's story is not the only one. Yuna Kang, the woman who married a ghost and helped bring down an empire, has secrets of her own. And what she did before she became Jinwoo's wife is a story nobody is ready for. Coming next on Tales by Wave.